and welcome back to my kitchen. Today is actually one part of a two-part videos that you need to watch to get this done. The first video I am going to teach you how to make a steamed chocolate cake, and in the second part I'm going to show you how to decorate this cake with fresh flowers right out of my garden and some other delicious stuff that is waiting right over there for us to pick up and build this cake. I'm going to do it from the start to show you exactly how to measure out your ingredients and also make a cake that is a showstopper on anyone's table. So hang tight and we're going to get this started. So before we can just get to baking, there's a few steps that you need to know and a few things regarding the tools that is quite important. Because as opposed to making food and making a dish that you can taste and see, okay, this needs a little bit of salt, this might need a little bit of that. With baking it's different and you need to be precise. So that's why all my tools are on the table. As I go along, I want to show you how and why to use them. So for this chocolate cake, we're going to start by adding 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Now there's different kinds of flour in the shops, but right now you just need a local grocery store all-purpose flour that you buy. I need to stress out how important it is to try and, as you go along in baking, get the precise tools. So you can't just go and bake a cake with using mom's china cups or your coffee mug if you need to measure out cups of flour. Because every cup or standard cup is 250 mils, and that's the part that is important. Most of our china cups or coffee cups, mine is quite big, and it's not going to work, and that's definitely one of the big reasons a lot of people don't get their baking right. So to get started, I want 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I have always got this spoon inside of my bucket here, and I spoon it in, heap it up on top. But now, here's the important part. I'm not going to use it like that. To get 350 or 250 mils as to this cup, I need to take my knife and just with the flat side, scrape it off. So that's 1 cup, and we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We are first going to put all of our dry ingredients together. Now that we have the flour in place, I would like to sift it. Now, here's a little trick. If you don't have a sifter at home, you can always later invest in this. You can just use a hand whisk. The thing is, you want to get all of those lumps out and make it very, very fine. So once you have the flour fine, we're going to add 1 cup of brown sugar and 1 cup of white sugar. Now, as opposed to the flour that I scraped in, you can just take sugar, is very heavy, so it needs to be flat on the top and 250 mils. I'm just going to add that directly to my flour. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of brown sugar as well. Again, it needs to be flat to add. We're just going to take our hand whisk and give it a little stir to combine. So I have some baking powder and baking soda here, but these are not the only ingredients I'm going to use to make this cake rise. You'll see in most of my cakes I have eggs because I like the way this tastes as opposed to my baking powder and baking soda. Have you ever tasted a cake that has that aftertaste of baking soda? That's terrible. We don't want that. So we are going to use only 1 teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of baking soda. Now in front of me I have 3 different types of spoon measurements. The one is in gram, the one is in milliliters, and the one says 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, 1 whatever you need. I would like to encourage you to invest in any kind of these just to get your measurements right when baking. I do not like to use a normal teaspoon or a normal tablespoon. As to the cups explanation I gave you, where the one is bigger than the other, it's exactly the same with teaspoons and tablespoons. So if you can, as far as possible, try and use something that has the right measurements on it. So I am in love with my stainless steel one, and it says 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon, and it's exactly the same amounts as those I've checked. So I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, it's this one, and get baking powder. Again, like you did with the all-purpose flour, please don't go and do this. This is not baking. That's maybe cooking, but this is baking. So you want to take a flat spoon, and that's what you need. For the baking soda, again, don't go and fill it up. You just want 1 flat ½ a teaspoon of baking soda. Now I need ½ a teaspoon of salt as well, so I'm going to put that in directly. Also, it's heavy like sugar, but you do want to go and just scrape it off a little bit so you don't get too much salt in there. The salt really helps with the tasting of, brings out the tasting of the cocoa. Speaking of cocoa, it's time to put cocoa in. We do want this cake to be chocolate, right? So I'm going to measure out 1 cup of our cocoa here. I already used that. I'm just going to, this is ½ a cup. And again, with a spoon, let me just use this one. I'm going to scrape this out and put it inside the cup. I don't want to go and overfill it. This can vary. If you don't like the overpowering, I'm a big fan of dark chocolate. You can only use ½ a cup of cocoa and fill the other ½ a cup with normal all-purpose flour. It's up to you, but I like my chocolate cakes to be dark, rich and moist. So I'm going to fill this up and just press it inside. Cocoa always makes a big mess. And get that, you see everywhere is cocoa. And I want another ½ a cup, because we need a full cup of cocoa. There we go. Now that we've added all of our dry ingredients, I'm just going to take my whisk and combine everything together, get all of those lumps out, and this might take a few seconds, and just put it aside. Now we're going to move over to our wet ingredients. I'm going to start by taking my cup of margarine or butter and melt it down into the microwave for about 1 minute. Now, the reason I'm using margarine is I do have butter, but it is extremely expensive in South Africa. So I always go and opt for margarine, but a very high fat content. You don't want to go and buy margarine light or 50% or 40% margarine, because there's a lot of water in those. You want to go for full fat, 80% at the least. So I'm going to melt this down. While my margarine is melting down, I am going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can use vinegar as well, and add it to my 2 cups of milk. The reason I'm doing this is most of us don't have buttermilk as a rule inside our fridge. So I usually make mine, I make them in liters, and then I just leave them in the fridge whenever I need it. Or you can buy buttermilk if you happen to find them on special at the supermarket. So I've added the lemon juice or the vinegar. For each cup of buttermilk, use a tablespoon of either vinegar or the lemon juice. I've needed here 2 cups, so I've added 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm going to put this aside. My goodness, this melted down perfectly in 1 minute. So while those ones cool off, I'm getting my buttermilk and I'm adding 3 eggs to it. When adding eggs, you want to always add them first inside a small little plate or a pitcher like this one to make sure you don't get any of the shells inside of your batter. So I am going to break 1 and add it directly to my buttermilk here. Now we can just stir these up and mix them together well. I'm going to switch to my whisk now. There we go. And now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of vanilla. 1 tablespoon of vanilla in, mix it together. And we're going to add the wet ingredients to our dry ingredients. There's no specific way to do this. In this recipe, you just pour everything together and you start mixing it up. You don't want to overmix this. We just want it to be combined. This might take a few seconds. Right now, my mixture is well combined, but there's still a few lumps inside. It's the perfect time to add my margarine to it. I'm going to add it very slowly and continue to mix up while I pour these in. Again, this might take a few seconds. Just keep whisking until you have everything together and there's no more lumps showing. Now I'm just about ready to start baking, but I've noticed something. If you can look here to my bowl, do you see that? It's flour not being mixed in because I used the whisk the whole time. A lot of my flour on the bottom has not been whisked in yet. So these ones is something you want to invest in as well. It's either simple old wooden spoon. You have these fancy little scrapers nowadays that is also a spoon. I just recently got this one and I'm very happy with it. This one I bought at a local store. I think it was added with a little cookie cutter or something. This works perfectly. Now, and this is a very cheap one. I think I didn't even pay 10 Rand for this. It's perfect. It's just something to scrape those sides off. As you can see while I'm doing this, the flour is coming up on the outside and the inside there. And that's one mistake a lot of bakers do. They don't combine it properly, or at the end they see, oh, there's flour left, and then they want to combine them, and that's just not right. You want to make sure every piece at the bottom is worked in thoroughly. Now the reason I'm using these scrapers is because they go close to the edge of the bowl and you just want to clean that up. See, now I'm sitting with a lot of new lumps in there and we're just going to take a second and combine those again. My lumps are thoroughly out. There's nothing left inside the bowl that is flour or anything that hasn't been mixed in. And now we want to start building our cake. Now on this side, I have chosen 2 round tins. Now I have tins in my house because I bake a lot, but maybe have a round bowl that is oven safe, microwave safe. You can completely use that as well. I'll show you one. I have, in a previous video, used this one. It works perfectly. And this one as well. Totally fine if it can fit inside a pot. The reason a pot, this is where we're going to steam our cake in. So whatever you decide to use, you want to make sure it's greased well. Either with non-stick cooking spray or my special non-stick Miracle Whip. This is something you might not have in your home right now, apart from flour and the oil that goes into this. You need vegetable fat as well. That's something we don't regularly have in our home. So I'm just going to use non-stick spray and spray out my tins thoroughly. My tins are ready and I'm going to put them aside because I want to show you what we're going to do with the steaming process. I need a little side plate like this with a lift in them, both in them. We're going to put the plate straight inside our pot and put it on the stove, and I'm going to have you head over to this side with me and I'll show you what we do next. Now for this part, you do want to consider not having the kids around because we will work with a little bit of warm water and I don't want them burning. I have my tins here ready here and I want to show you I'm going to fill them up 3/4 of the way. Now with this batter, I should be able to make about 3 layers. I have my stove on at low. I'm going to pull over my pot. I've inserted my plate inside and now just with some water, I want to fill it up just before that lift ends. I don't want any water to touch the cake when it's boiling. So that should be enough. And I'm going to put my stove on and have it start to simmer. As soon as it starts to simmer, I am going to put this tin right on top of the plate like that. Now as you can see, bubbles are starting to form, but as soon as those bubbles comes up and break in the surface, we're going to have a mild simmer, and that's exactly the right time to add our tin to the pot. So right now you can start to hear the plate moving around and the bubbles breaking on the surface, so it's a perfect time to add our cake. I'm going to let the cake tap and fall to get out the bubbles, and I'm going to place it right in the middle on top of the plate and close it with my lid. Once this is done, I'm going to count down 30 minutes and our cake should be ready. So my cake has been steaming away for about 15 minutes and I just want to lift up the pot and show you. You just want to check the water and the water is still okay. So I'm just going to close it like that and let it go on for the time needed. So the first cake is about to be ready and I just want to quickly show you. Once it goes off, I'm going to open it up. Woo, a lot of steam. You can do this and it jumps up. The cake is perfectly cooked. And I'm going to take this out, make the other 2 layers, and when I'm ready I'm going to come back and show you exactly how we're decorating this. Now I've just taken my first cake out of the pot and it's steamed and it's perfectly cooked through. While the others are steaming, I want to show you how to take this out. Now you want to leave this, once it gets out of the pot, you want to leave this for at least 5 minutes to just cool down. Then you take a knife and go on the edges of the cake just to loosen it up a little, like that. Once it loosens up, you just want to tip it over onto a wire rack like this. Now, this is also one of the things, the basic things I would recommend you have in your home, even if it's just one. It does wonders for cookies and wonders for cakes. It helps it not sweat when you take it out and it's still cooling down. So this cake I'm just gonna pull out. I have a loose bottom tin here, but if you spread it well, it should come out perfectly. And our first cake is done and ready to be cooled down. So if you are going to decorate it today, you can just leave it to cool down. But if you're going to do it the next day or even 2 or 3 days before, I would like to encourage you to wrap this cake up while it's still a little hot in cling wrap and put it inside your freezer. Yes, while it's still a little hot, wrap it up in cling and put it in the freezer. And then take it out when you need it, about 30 minutes before you start decorating. It keeps the cake moist and it helps you to make this a little bit ahead of time and not have to do everything in one day. And there you have it, 3 steamed chocolate layers cake ready to be filled, iced and decorated. Now if this is the only part you tuned in for today, I want to take a second and to thank you for watching my video. If there is any questions, please leave it in the comments below and I will get back to you on anything you want to find out regarding baking the cake. But if you're interested in seeing how I'm icing and decorating this cake, tune into my next video, part 2, and I'll show you exactly how it's done.